Welcome to Practical AI, everybody. My name's Jeff, and I'm with Peter Lynn. Today, we wanted to discuss what multimodal means. Peter, this word comes up a lot, especially recently. What is multimodal, and how are the machine learning experts using it today?
Yeah, so it's an old term. It goes back many, many years, back to the 70s actually. So it's quite old. Multimodal just means that when you're training your model, it's taking in input from different kinds of data. The earliest examples are from self-driving cars, where you have radar, you have LiDAR, you have images, you might have sonar also. You also might have GPS. When DARPA did the Grand Challenge, they had all those things. They had radar, LiDAR, sonar, vision, and GPS all together.
And so, in that instance, the model is leveraging each of those modes
Yep.
in order. It's training and leveraging each of those modes, training through and leveraging. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is very different than OpenAI and Llama 2 and right. Those are one mode, right? It's just language or text, right?
Yeah. So Llama to GP2 and 3 are just text.
Okay. And then ChatGPT has extended that a little bit, right? They've gotten into more modes. What where are they advancing, or what are they selecting as their modes of choice going down the next path?
So with 4 Turbo, that one's supposed to be multimodal. And they haven't said exactly which modes they're using, but it's at minimum text and images. It might include video, but I don't know for sure. I haven't seen any definitive answer about whether or not it does or doesn't. But the basic concept is very similar. If you go back to DARPA, with each sensor, you train a model that filters out noise. So, for example, radar has this thing where if you drive by a manhole or something without a metal, it can have it thinks there's a phantom thing that doesn't really exist because the radar is bouncing off of metal and it's causing noise. Same thing with sonar, same thing with LiDAR. And so what you do is you train each model for that input to basically clean it up. And then you take the clean input and you feed it to one model that then takes all that input, what's called sensor fusion, to then train one master model that can take all those inputs and make sense of the world.
Okay. Well, that I mean, in the self-driving car, that seems like not a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
Than just using vision. Um, Now, when you and I talked about this earlier this week, the it also seemed like this multimodal approach is being used as somewhat of a band-aid to the single mode not being able to accomplish its goal.
Yeah.
Give us an example of where they're kind of using the multimodal approach to prop up maybe a, a bad outcome or a bad execution of a single mode model.
Yeah. The most common example is you have some image data and you want to train a model to do something. And so going back to the kind of constant problem of where do you get enough data? Where do you get good enough data? And how do you prune out bad data? And that's always been hard and always will be hard because it requires manpower. And even if you do kind of, so the new approach is you train it a little bit so it gets decent at the thing. And then you have it then either generate data that you can use to train or use it to kind of filter and process your data to reduce the amount of manual human labor you need to go through and tag all the photos, right? So the idea is you take a million images, you train it on like 100,000, it gets decent, and then you have it tag it the other 900,000, right? And that's much faster than a human going through and doing that. Then you just have a few people that just validates and verifies, like, oh yeah, okay, I got that right, I got that right, I got it right. No, got that one wrong. And so it's kind of like you train the model to help you to annotate and label your data. But again, it's still time intensive, still requires human beings, and you still have to collect data. Whereas the new approach is, well, okay, we've got large language models, we've got the internet of data. And so what we can do now, we can combine image and text. So we use multimodal models to get better because now you can look at captions or descriptions attached to an image, and then you can then use that to improve the training of your computer vision models.
Yeah, that would eliminate a huge step then, wouldn't it? If it's able to capture essentially the metadata about the photo.
Right. Like let's say you go to a birthday party and you say, birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese.
Which you and I love.
Which so now like if you're using that text to train your vision, it's like, oh, you've got much more context now. It's not just like someone manually going and tagging the things you think are important because now
Yeah,
I hit people birthday party, Chuck E. Cheese's, and it can look up on the internet. Chuck E. Cheese is a pizza place.
right. Well, I think you said too that, in some of these poorly trained computer vision models where they're trying to like capture the idea of like a red shirt at Target or a dress at Target and it's the I think you were telling me that Google like it's just kind of struggled with this, right? And so there maybe by adding a different mode, the
Yep.
metadata, the text, it might help their models do what they were unable to do with just computer vision. Is that fair?
Yep. Yeah. So when they first launched their ML driven image search, which was like back in 2015 or 16, I think, it wasn't very good. And they had trained it on like a billion images. And the common complaint that people had was people would take photos of stuff and then feed it to Google search. It used to work fine with the old version, and they did worse on the ML version.
Oh, so like their original sort of like hard
Yeah.
coded decision tree or whatever they were using,
Right.
rule
Yeah.
engine or whatever. It just
Yeah. So the old approach looked at like shapes, images, colors, but it was handwritten by people. It was um in combination with some machine learning. But when they had this new version for a couple of years, it just was worse. I mean, it didn't get good enough until about I think 2020 or 22 is when it was good enough that they could make it the default image search.
all right. And so from an open source perspective, are there places that beginners or people that are fascinated with the multimodal approach can they go and get sort of open access to open source projects that are doing this?
Right now, there isn't any open source multimodal model yet. There are people working on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the Lion data set has so what they did was they took the Common Crawl data set and they wrote a whole bunch of scripts to go through and kind of like pull out stuff and organize it into a data set. So from that, you could train a multimodal model. The downside is it's being funded by universities and nonprofits, which means that they don't have the same kind of resources that a Microsoft or Apple, Google, or OpenAI has, right? Because they don't have a data center with 10,000 GPUs to use.
Got it. So it might take them a while to put out something that is available to the open source community.
Yep.
So who's leading in this space and who's going to what's it going to do to the industry? Where's this going to go?
Well, I mean, we've known for decades that this was where we wanted to be. But getting there, it took all these steps to get there because you need to have enough data, clean the data, organize the data, and then have enough hardware to actually make this practical. I mean, training a large multimodal model really wasn't feasible until NVIDIA came out with the A100s. But even that, it was still slow. It's only with the H100s that now it's financially practical because it would take too much time.
And how long until some multimodal model replaces humankind?
No one knows. Um, but that's a question that I think people are trying to answer. I think until we can actually understand and interpret models and the weights and really know what's going on, it's still going to be a while. Although I think if you ask OpenAI, they're going to say that just transformers is enough. We just needed bigger and more data, is what they keep saying.
Good. Well, last question, Peter. What can someone who's interested in this, that's young and doesn't have a lot of money and just exploring this, what can they do to kind of get smart on this or participate in sort of the multimodal thing? Or do you recommend that they don't worry about that now, just get really good at doing computer vision or LLMs or something?
Well, I think everyone learns differently. So whatever someone thinks is interesting, just jump right in because what works for me or for someone else isn't going to work for another person. So don't be afraid. Just just jump in.
All right. Well, I'm excited to see when the open source community gets a hold of this and see what those models look like. In the meantime, be sure to ask questions and follow, share this with others, and love to hear any ideas that you have for topics you'd like us to cover. In the meantime, we'll see you probably next week. Take care.